So this creek bed has always been here. And I, some years ago, a couple years back, changed the routing of it at that time. If you've followed anything I've done in the past, I've rerouted the creek. I've transitioned it from a, if you will, a floodplain to a formalized creek.
Hold on a second here. What are we talking about? Let's back up and start from the beginning. Okay, let's pan out to an aerial view. Hold on, let's get the orientation correct. Get the north and south right. So why build a reservoir? Irrigation demands definitely are exceeding our production, our well production. So production trees and lawns are just simply not getting watered. Fire protection, well, will not work without electricity, so this allows us to do that. And the possibility of drilling another well would basically run us into the same problems in the later months of the summer, and water would be just simply not available for the drier months of the year. Water supply reliable. Yeah, our water supply is quite reliable. After 3 years of being here, the seasonal creek water production just seems to be just way over the top. Annual and peak seasonal runoff conservatively produces over 10 million gallons, so it should be good. And then our water needed to meet demand is just around 400,000 gallons at a 25% evaporation rate, so only about 300,000 usable gallons. Hopefully that'll get replenished by rainfall and things of that nature somewhere in the July months, so we can get some of that water back, some of that evaporation back. Now, do we have the space for all this? To store 400,000 gallons, we need to build a 250 by 50 by 8 reservoir with a 3-to-1 ratio in the banks. Make sure that the dam is structurally correct. That required 3-to-1 slope plus a 20-foot crest all the way around will add some extra footage to the layout. And to ensure that water quality control, a 10-foot wide creek will be built to the south to divert the polluted water around the reservoir so we can turn the gate on and off to ensure we have the clean water. And then last, what are the obstacles to building our reservoir? Well, number one, of course, is government agencies. You're going to have wildlife agency. You also have the Water Resource Board, that'll look into this. If the dam was to exceed 10 feet tall, I would actually have to have dam safety agency involved. But we're going to keep that underneath that on the eastern end of the dam, under that 10-foot height. Winter is coming. We're going to run into weather. It's we unfortunately I came up with this plan a little bit late in the season in summer, and so we're kind of wedging it in between summer and winter, and that means in North Idaho we could be running into snowfall, other rain or other elements that are just going to simply freeze the project out, if you will. Third, there's quite a bit of rock on the surface, which portends to a serious rock formation under the surface. If we run into this will cause delays and financial strain, if you will. So, which leads me to number 4. Time and financials are all derivative of the government agencies, winter's coming, and the rock formation. So we might run into some restrictions there as well. So this is the obstacles building. Let's go on to the plan. Okay, so let's take a look at the design of the reservoir. The first thing I wanted to point out is I do have 4 or about 52 inches of diameter culverts coming through the driveway. And we'll build an area right here, call it a collection area, to slow down the water. It comes through there just blasting. I'll put up an image up in the top right corner of it, just flying through there. And then, then we're going to go ahead and come into here, and then, we're going to have this point of diversion, as they would call it, with a canal gate. Just a simple gate. I actually will show this later. That this gate up with a simple paver in front of it. I am worried about a little bit of freezing it to the cement, but I'm sure I'll be able to throw some hot water on it and break it apart when I need be, or even the water from the creek will get it loose enough to get it going. So we're going to have this creek flow off to the south of the reservoir, all the way around and back into its normal fall, if you will. And then, but from here in the point of diversion, the gate opens up. A canal will just divert the water into the reservoir. And when we think about the size of this thing, we're thinking about 250 times 50 feet. So it's a quite sizable reservoir, 8 feet deep, looking to hopefully collect somewhere in the vicinity of 375 to 400,000 gallons. And I've done all that calculation before. So when we think about where if this has the space, we want to be about 15 feet from the road base, another 10 feet wide for the creek itself, and then about 20 feet for what will, as you go from west to east, the build of the dam. So as obviously you get further and further east, the drop needs to be filled in with the dam, and so they'll be requiring a little bit more of a base here. We do have a very sizable tree that we love over here. We call him General Grant. So we're not going to want to impact this tree at all up here. This is all sloping upward, about a 25% slope, which will provide us a little bit, if you will, the natural slope on the north side of the reservoir. We'll be cutting into it, but we'll have some natural slope that'll support the back side of the reservoir. Getting inside to the reservoir, we're going to have the little inlet on this end, 4-inch pipe that'll run through the base of it and then dump out to kind of a tank, if you will, a riser. And that's where the pump will live and be controlled from there. And then on the other end, we will have a sediment valve that I will run a pipe through the center of it with some of the perforation on it, such that at the end of the year we can dump it out and have the water clean out, if you will, the bottom sediment that might have built over the course of the initial fill. Then of course over here off screen will be the spillway. So in case the reservoir overfills due to rain, due to not closing the canal gate quick enough, we will go ahead and have a spillway that'll flow right back into the creek. So, as I've mentioned before, diverting the creek around to get rid of what I'm calling the polluted water, the water that often, as we've lived here for several years now, we see the water goes from crystal clear on the melt off to just basically muddy water. So we're not wanting that in our reservoir, so we want to have the ability to close the gate on the canal and divert that water around. It would have been much simpler just to let it run straight into the reservoir, and might have even have given me a little bit more room to fill up and get even more gallons, if you will. But the gallons are meeting my needs and exceeding my needs, so I was happy with that. But I wanted to make sure that the water in here was not filled with mud. It'd only take a year or two and we would literally see the bottom of this thing filled up with mud. I just wanted to avoid that. There will be some. There's just no way to avoid it. But to try to restrict it down to something that we can actually use the water. I plan on putting a filter on it before it hits the irrigation. But having said that, I just wanted to make sure that we had as clean a water as possible. So that is the lay of the land. Obviously, I got my nice little guy here in the corner that tells you northwest, east, south, the compass. And what we'll do is, again, the north side is a slope. The south side, we got to make sure we're so distanced away that the road and the the light poles, electrical poles are not, they're still accessible. And then, of course, want to make sure that from east to west we have enough room for the pool here and enough room for the creek to go by, because the creek to go by over here, because as you go closer to the yellow shop at the street, just want to make sure that we have enough distance there to work. All this has to be sloped in such a way of 3-to-1. I would love it to be a 4-to-1 so it could be easier to mow and maintain, because there will be grass planted around the perimeter of this thing. And then of course we are intending to fill this all up with about 4 inches of 1 to 2 inch river rock, round rock. We do have wildlife up here in North Idaho, so we're always going to make sure that if they walk in there, as they will, that there's some displacement, if you will, if they step on it and put their hooves into the liner. So there it is. There's the lay of the land, if you will, and we will, basically come back to this several times. Hopefully this is the plan that is executed. Sometimes plans don't get executed as you wish. But this is currently the structure of the plan. We do have a liner. It is 268 by 71 wide. So that takes into account the 3-to-1 ratio as we go across, and gets that so that you can tuck it in around the perimeter so that it holds down the liner from, if you will, becoming a very large kite. So that is the reservoir, and hopefully, we build this to the plan. So now that you have the reservoir plans, let's cut back into my previous discussion I was having about the creek bed and the beginning day, the very first day of our build of the reservoir.
So obviously this creek bed has always been here. And some years ago, a couple years back, changed the routing of it at that time. If you've followed anything I've done in the past, I've rerouted the creek. I've transitioned it from if you will, a floodplain to a formalized creek. In the process of doing that, you can see all the rock that has just been torn from the sediment in the ground. It's incredible how much power water has to really make its path through where it wants to go. This creek is going to, for the most part, be covered today. What's going to happen is I'm going to bring it up in height so that we can make sure that we have, again, that foundation behind the backside of the dam. The backside of the dam is going to be somewhere of 10 feet tall. So we have a 7.5 foot fall from west to east. As I walk west, I can show you that you can see the incline that it has slowly building as we go across the creek bed here. But really excited about this. Now, on the other side of this is all this rock has to be dealt with. Some of that's a great thing, right? So I'm going to take some of the smaller rocks, the 2 inchers, the 3 inchers, and use them for back of sides of hills and shore up places like in the back of the shop area, and also along the road base here to my left or to the south. The larger rocks have plenty of places to go. We have to shore up the shoreline of the reservoir. We have the waterfall to put in. Obviously that can't be smaller rock or else it would just tear it away. And we have I'm here trying to do the little billy goat through all this rock. And we of course have the general use of the property overall. All this rock will come to bear. It's good. It's good stuff. Of course, sorting through it, we do have plans to bring in a siffer to break the obviously the dirt from the rock and clean it up just a bit. This is a massive project. As I've said before and prior, it's 250 feet by 50 feet wide by 8 feet deep. It'll have a pump. It'll support if, God forbid, ever a fire, but it also will support our irrigation for plentiful trees on the property, and the different concepts of you know, grass and what have you that we have to take care of over the course of time. Looking forward to this journey. It's going to be a big one, probably the biggest I'll ever do, so I'm excited about doing it and look forward to share it with y'all.